Professor X Wild Reign begins in the Marvel Universe. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 16. Woo. Logan wanted to say a few words of trash to the hatred of hitting him. Suddenly I found that I couldn't speak. Tantra. Logan turned his head and gave Charles a look that you would appreciate. Charles smiled. If you scold me in your heart, I will let you clean the toilet for a month, son. Count you ruthless, Charles. After Logan was knocked off, Steelus rushed forward and fought Abomination. Abomination is 3 meters tall and has hundreds of tons of strength. Steel Lux is 2 meters tall and has a strength of about 50 tons. Purely in terms of strength, Steel Lux was crushed by Abomination. But Steel Lux is stronger defensive than Abhorrent. His metal body, which looks like steel, is actually far stronger than steel in terms of hardness and toughness. Second only to Edelman alloys and vibranium. In steel form, Steel Lux can resist wood bullets. So this battle is not one-sided. One is stronger. One defense is stronger. It seems that he hates beating Steel Lux as a sandbag. In fact, hatred cries out. One punch after another, it was like smashing on a huge steel ingot. Even the Hulk banner should have been beaten by him. However, Steel Lux did not respond. No reaction at all. It's not that Steel Lux can completely ignore the fist of Abomination. The main Steel Lux has a less brilliant brain. Not particularly sensitive to sensations such as pain. Unless the injury accumulates to a critical point. Makes it impossible for him to maintain a steel body. Otherwise, Steel Lux can use this unending state to fight for a whole day. Scary mutants. 6 kilometers away, Natasha said sincerely. An obscure mutant. There are actually back and forth fights with haters. You know, even the Hulk is not absolutely sure of defeating Abomination. This steel man has at least 70% of the Hulk's strength. In the other direction of this battlefield, Stryker's last killer move, the X-Weapon, is released. X-Weapon used to be a word hacker agent beside Stryker. Stryker used him to conduct experiments, injecting dozens of X genes. Kill everyone. Stryker commanded the X-Weapon. Z. The laser swept his line of sight, and several soldiers who blocked in front were cut off. The corners of Stryker's mouth twitched. No way, the distinction between friend and foe is the biggest drawback of X-Weapons. Because X-Weapons can only be considered semi-finished products. And there is no way to replicate. After talking to the agent, Stryker experimented with dozens of people, and the results all failed. It can only be said that the agent of the word is an accidental product. Seeing X-Weapons, killing without distinction between friend and foe. The remaining soldiers in the field began to retreat. Damn the White House, just let them fight monsters. People who know their side are still stabbing them in the back. Beast Hank pounces on the X-Weapon. The latter disappeared instantly, and the next moment, he appeared behind Hank. The blades on both hands pierced into Hank's body, causing Hank to scream bitterly. Seeing this, Logan turned around and went to help Hank first. His claws pierced through the ribs on either side of the X-Weapon. Who would have thought that the X-Weapon did not react to pain? Instead, his head rotated 180 and looked at Logan. Binocular laser emission. Multiply. Logan was blown away tens of meters by the laser and hit a large tree. His chest was scorched. Even the ribs of the Edmund alloy can be faintly seen, shining with a metallic luster. Storm Girl rising in midair, overlooking the whole picture. She grasped the X-Weapon with 5 fingers. Lightning struck the latter. The X-Weapon's body was scorched black, but the charred body was healing rapidly. Rogan's abilities? Storm Girl was puzzled. I saw X-Weapon raise her head, and those scarlet eyes locked on her. The laser suddenly shot into the air. The Storm Girl hurriedly flashed, she flew down to Charles, and said, Charles, what is that monster, is it also a mutant? I saw that he had Logan's resilience, and Scott's laser sight. That's the result of Stryker's research on mutants. Oh, there is actually the ability of psychic power. Charles put his fingers on his temples, and couldn't help but laugh. How to say it? Stryker knows a lot about the X-Men. He used the Phantom Master's bodily fluids to control Eric and extract a lot of valuable information from Eric's mouth. The X-Weapon has a variant ability of certain psychic powers. This psychic ability cannot be used for control. Because the X-Weapon itself does not have thinking, only the most basic ability to accept orders. But psychic power allows him to form a layer of protection. Prevent being invaded by your own telepathy. It's just that Stryker underestimated himself. There are many mutants with psychic abilities. Professor X has only one. Unless the Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, Gu-E, and Scarlet Witch, there are not many people on this planet who can resist their own telepathy. Charles took just 13 seconds to take control of the X-Weapon. The X-Arms then abandoned their attacks on Hank and Logan and instead slaughtered Stryker's men. Shield. Coulson said, Chief, it looks like Stryker's secret weapon is out of control. Do you need Tony to stop this carnage? Fury shook his head. Trust me, that will only make things worse. That's when a phone call came to Fury. After Fury listened, his black face appeared even darker. Episode 17. Stryker leads his agents and a mechanized battalion to attack Xavier's Genius Junior School. It ended badly. After resolving the crisis, Charles notified S.H.I.E.L.D. and asked them to clean up the battlefield. The reason is that there are more than 200 students here. If you see the bloody scene tomorrow morning, you will be frightened and leave an indelible shadow in the young mind. To this, S.H.I.E.L.D., like a vanquished, agreed to Charles's request. Because Magneto jailbroke. While Stryker's military operation was underway, Eric, Magneto, who was being held in a plastic prison in Washington, D.C., completed his escape. The leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants returns. S.H.I.E.L.D. has no confidence and faces 2 alpha-level mutants in the world at the same time. Xavier gifted junior school. Like Charles said, the lights in the student dormitory turn off on time after an hour. Even if there is a fierce war. It also does not affect the school's schedule. It's just that wayward. Orolo, I have to trouble you to go to Maple Leaf Country tonight. At school, Charles arranges for Stormgirl, Sky, Rogan, and Steel, among others. Maple Leaf Country? Sky was puzzled. Charles nodded. Maple Leaf Country Alkali Lake, Stryker has a base for studying mutants inside the Alkali Lake Dam. Sky, you're in charge of downloading the data and research. I'll use that and go with you. Charles pointed to the side, like a benchmark X-weapon. The X-weapon is one of the trophies of this time. The consciousness that originally belonged to the agent of the conversation has been destroyed in the experiment. So, Charles can use him as a doppelganger. Because the Master of Illusions exists. Charles was not comfortable leaving them alone. The Phantom Master's body will actively secrete a pheromone, and the pheromone can let the people around him enter the illusion. This ability is different from telepathy. In the movie, even Professor X is hard to resist. Soon, Blackbird fighters took off from the hangar. The reason why Stormgirl is a full-time pilot of the Blackbird fighter. Because she can control the weather. Using thunderstorms for cover, coupled with the fighter's own anti-radar system, even S.H.I.E.L.D. is difficult to detect. Laser Eyes watched the fighter take off, and he asked Charles to join the operation, but was refused. Rejected together, there is also Jean. Joke. In the original plot, it was these 2 people who blew up the dam against the wave. Jean was swept away by the flood in order to save everyone. In the third part of the X-Men, the Dark Phoenix personality is awakened. Now that he knows the development of the plot, Charles certainly has to avoid this happening. Jean, you gave this to Hank to help him recover from his injuries. Scott, keep an eye on S.H.I.E.L.D. and others who will be sent to clean up the battlefield, and at about the same time, open the prison cage of Abomination. Charles handed a fairy bean to Jean and said to Laser-Eyed Scott. Professor, are you going to let go of the Abomination? Laser-Eye said in shock. This time the war started. The victorious Xavier Genius Junior School reaped a total of 3 trophies. X-Weapon, Colonel Stryker and Abomination, respectively. In negotiations with Fury, Charles promised to hand over Stryker and Abomination to S.H.I.E.L.D. As a condition, Shariah chose to bow his head and find his own reasons to explain the loss of a mechanized infantry battalion. And pay $1 billion to repair damaged schools. He ran away on his own. What does it have to do with us? By the way, the cage that pretends to be abhorrent was ordered by me from Stark Industries before. Since the cage is not secure, ask S.H.I.E.L.D. if you can complain about Tony Stark. For the first time, Laser-Eye felt that the professor still had such a dark side. If the Abomination ran away, that would definitely give Hakuya a headache to death. Meanwhile, Washington. Huge underground tunnels, filled with a stench of corruption. Magneto, Eric, and the Witch Raven go hand in hand. Charles actually disbanded the X-Men and went to war with the military. Eric said in disbelief. This is highly encrypted intelligence. However, there is a hacker mutant nicknamed Wired in the Mutant Brotherhood. Connect, just use your brain. It can crack the Federation, almost all encrypted files. Yes, Charles's behavior was a surprise. Raven said. Raven and Charles have known each other longer, and he knows that Charles is a noble idealist. He probably realized how naive he was thinking before. I'll go to New York in a while and meet this old friend. But before that, we're going to find new friends. Eric said easily. The sewers are as complex as a labyrinth, and there are even many false walls that deliberately blind them. However, Ruiwen is familiar with this place. This is the lair of the Morlock people. The Morlocks are also an organization of mutants. Unlike the Hellfire Club, the Brotherhood of Mutants, and Xavier Gifted Junior School, the Morlock organization was weak and poor. They had to survive in the sewers. Urge, the leader of the Morlocks, is a mutant who firmly implements the concept of escapism. After Eric escaped from prison, he did not rush to leave Washington. He wants to subdue the Morlock people here. Mutants with a higher level of evolution are reduced to sewer rats, and only dare to return to the ground in the middle of the night to pick up human leftovers. This is a great sadness. Episode 18, Laser Eye firmly carried out Charles's orders. He stood on the school balcony, hands behind him, and stared at the audience with meticulous eyes. So that no S.H.I.E.L.D. agents would take the opportunity to threaten the school. After S.H.I.E.L.D. cleared most of the battlefield, hand over Stryker and Abomination's transport vehicles into place. They loaded people and a cage into separate vehicles. This cage is after Thor 1. Manufactured exclusively by Stark Industries according to the strength of the Asgardians. Theoretically it applies to Hulk as much as hatred. But the transporter has not yet left the confines of Xavier's school for gifted juniors. Laser Eye pressed a button in his hand. Followed by. About half a minute later. The transporter let out a loud bang, and the Abomination knocked the entire car to its side. His hands tore open the steel plate on the side of the vehicle and jumped out of it. Roar. A night of grievance, let the Abomination roar. Tapda, tapda-da. The S.H.I.E.L.D. agent reacted quickly, and immediately a dense stream of bullets fell on him. But such firepower is tickling for Abomination. Even howitzers. It only took a few steps to shake back the Abomination. He looked at the school building whose silhouette was faintly visible, and anger rose in his heart. At this moment, a voice appeared in Abomination's mind. Big man, if you dare to come to school again, I'll let you jump into the septic tank and drown you, understand? The ontology of Abomination is the super soldier Bronski. He injected Hulk serum. Let him become emotionally confused, angry, crazy, but it does not mean that there is no residual sanity. Jump inside the evolution cesspool? Thinking of the stench of the septic tank, Abomination couldn't help but snort. Then he reversed direction. Run towards New York City, opposite Xavier's gifted junior school. Agent Walter, who was in charge of this handover, looked at the Abomination that disappeared into the night and notified the headquarters with his mobile phone. His call went directly to Coulson. Sir, Abomination ran away. We didn't know what was going on, the vehicle transporting Abomination suddenly overturned, and then he ran out. He's now fleeing west, which is Queens. Maja Fak. Walt heard a very characteristic and furious voice from the loudspeaker. Apparently Chief Fury was right next to Coulson. The King of Agents understood Charles's plan almost instantly. A cage that even Thor, the god of thunder, can trap. How can you not shut down hatred? Charles deliberately unleashed Abomination. Think about it, the Abomination that recently wreaked havoc in Harlem would have been captured by the military. They also held a press conference specifically for this. Now Abhorrence is back in Queens. How to explain it to the public this time? White Houses, S.H.I.E.L.D., the military, will simply be drowned in the saliva of the population. Coulson, let Tony figure out a way to catch him before Abomination enters Queens anyway. And you Walter, send Stryker directly to the Washington headquarters, there can be no more accidents. The value of Colonel Stryker. Much more than a few hundred GIs. A few hundred soldiers are just cannon fodder. In the face of capital. Human life can be measured in banknotes and benefits. Stryker has decades of research on mutants. Moreover, Stryker has capital behind it. Otherwise, decades of research, sky-high scientific research expenses, is not something he can afford. So Stryker's life is worth a lot. Late at night, Tony Stark was woken up by a call from Coulson. Agent Coulson, I'm not your subordinate, you know. I can only sleep 5 hours a day, and if you disturb my precious sleep again, I'll take back your sports car called Laura. You know it was given to S.H.I.E.L.D. from my father, and I have the right to come back. Tony yelled as he got up. He just exercised with Pepper. Sleep for less than half an hour. I was woken up. Without a reasonable explanation, he was really going to get angry. Mr. Stark, New York needs you now. Abomination is rushing to Queens. If he gets to Queens, we don't know how much harm he can cause. Coulson said. My God, why do you keep making all this mess? Hulk Banner, hate Bronski, the military made 2 monsters, and now they can't even lock up one of them. It's better for taxpayers to spend money on a herd of pigs than they are, at least the pigs won't cause trouble. Tony got out of bed angrily. When the Hulk and Abomination fought in Harlem. He is in Tennessee, being hunted down by desperate virus fighters. But upon his return, Tony set about creating an anti-Hulk armor. Now the anti-Hulk armor is not yet a finished product. Just use hatred as a sparring partner. See what else needs to be adjusted. Tony, don't they have anyone else to save the world but you? Pepper came out of the quilt and said sleepily. Those who can work more, This is the problem faced by the Avengers. A World War II veteran, a haunted guy with a hammer, a big man with an uncontrolled temper, a veteran spy, and an archer with cold weapons. Tony complained as he got dressed. Obviously, the great genius Tony Stark. Tony walked to the windowsill, as if slipping, and the whole person fell backwards. Pepper exclaimed in fright. Right at this moment, Tony wears a Mark 43 and rises. Obviously, the great genius Tony Stark will not fall to death. My dear, what to eat in the morning? I will bring it back to you by the way. Tony, I might live 20 years less with you. Little Pepper, who had palpitations, breathed a sigh of relief. Episode 19. The sky glowed with a faint white light. When the first rays of sunlight hit the building, Tony looked at the ruins around him. Jarvis, how many casualties? Sir, 11 people were injured, 2 of them seriously. I have called an ambulance, no one died. AI Jarvis said. At this time, there were already many people around. Almost all of them took pictures of Iron Man with their phones. Tony waved his hand in greeting. Next to Tony, wearing anti-Hulk armor, is the beaten Abomination. Some citizens who noticed the Abomination exclaimed, "Look, isn't that the Abomination that was destroyed on Manhattan Island?" The military said that Abomination had been captured. How did he appear again? Deceit, the military is deceiving us. Damn, this terrifying monster is still active in New York. They actually deceived us. Fortunately there is Iron Man, otherwise we don't know how we died. More and more citizens gathered. Tony didn't know what to say. He simply grabbed his Abomination ankle, flew up, and quickly disappeared into the place. Shortly after Tony left, the angry crowd organized a massive march in New York. Condemned the White House, the military, and S.H.I.E.L.D. for concealment. Eagle Sauce is a little anxious for everyone involved in this matter. CIA. Everett Ross walked into the interrogation room with 2 cups of coffee, and he turned off the parade that was playing on television. He said, "Colonel Stryker, this is the mess you made." Stryker laughed. "My actions were authorized by the White House, and it was the resistance of those mutants that was unexpected, apparently." In Stryker's mind. Take military action against Xavier Gifted Jr. School himself. Sensible mutants should honestly wait to be caught. Everett didn't want to argue with Stryker. Yes, those damn mutants rebelled against the Federation. But the problem now is that this operation has not only failed. The resurgence of abhorrence also led to a sharp decline in the credibility of the authorities. If the colonel does not want to be responsible for this incident, he should show sincerity. Stryker understood what Everett meant. The purpose of the CIA is his research on mutants. That's a valuable asset. Money can't measure it. Because of this chip, he can still sit here and drink coffee. Instead of being sent to the prison of the Ministry of Justice. Just as Stryker weighed the pros and cons, when you are ready to come up with many research results and save yourself. A video appeared on the internet. It was the video of Stryker controlling the Night Stalker and having him assassinate the president. There is also information that Stryker has conducted brutal experiments on mutants over the years. After Stormgirl and the others returned to school, Charles asked Skye to contact the High Tide Organization, using the channels of the High Tide Organization to throw these things online. Because there is clear video material. Plus the content is too cruel. In a short period of time, these things were widely disseminated. If abhorrence reappears. It was like a grenade hitting the White House, and it had a big blow to the White House. Stryker's actions. It's like a wooden bomb. If it is not handled well, the president may be impeached. So Hakuya urgently convened a meeting to discuss with his think tank how to respond. In their hearts, everyone greeted Stryker's relatives. The president, in particular, can't wait to kill Stryker now. Damn Stryker. Actually controlled the mutants to assassinate him. Mr. President, the situation is not as bad as it seems. The Secretary of State said. Stryker controlled the mutants to assassinate you, and you, like those mutants, are a victim. We just have to push everything onto Stryker. Including the reappearance of abhorrence, as well as the loss of the mechanized battalion. Everett of the CIA got a call from his boss. He stood up, reached for Stryker's coffee, and threw it in the trash. Stryker looked stunned. Everett said, "Colonel Stryker, the deal is void. Later, you will be handed over to the Ministry of Justice, and lawyers from the Ministry of Justice will charge you for treason, crimes against humanity and war crimes. To put it bluntly, you're done." Until Everett left the interrogation room. Stryker was still confused. What? Isn't it a good chat? After reading the statement of the White House, Charles really pushed the responsibility 4, 5, or 6. Stryker became the biggest backer. The ins and outs of the whole thing are like this in the White House statement. Stryker has been secretly researching mutants in secret. He controls mutants after the failed assassination of the president. He also controls the Mutant Legion to rescue Abomination, trying to use Abomination to create chaos. A mechanized infantry battalion was killed in the clashes. Grave condolences to the fallen soldiers, and high respect for defeating the hated Iron Man. I don't know what Stryker's expression will be when he sees this statement. After the Storm Girl came in, she said. Definitely more wonderful than knowing that his son is a mutant. Charles replied, then asked, didn't Logan come back with him? Episode 20. Logan the Wolverine was once designed by Stryker as his experimental subject. Because he was hit in the head by a bullet from Edmund Alloy. Causes memory loss. When Professor X first met Rogan, he could help him recover his memory. It's just that those memories are too painful. So Professor X told Logan that he couldn't do it. This time, Charles asked Logan to travel to the Lake Alkali Dam in the hope that he would regain his memory in the place where he was reshaped. Storm said, Logan, he wants to be quiet. You know, he's always been that lone wolf personality. By the way, Charles, the mutants rescued from the Lake Alkali Dam were handed over directly to the federal government. Are you sure there is no problem? Those politicians are mean, shameless, greedy, but never underestimate their cleverness. Charles laughed. The aftermath of Stryker will continue for some time, and politicians know how to put on a show and win back support. Besides, hundreds of mutants, we can't send them home one by one. It's mid-November. More than 10 days have passed since Stryker's armed operation against Xavier's gifted youth school. School is basically as calm as ever. The only difference. It's just that many courses have been added. The cultural curriculum has been more subdivided. With the billion compensation given by the White House, plus the wealthy Osborn's group, Charles can spend lavishly. In eagle sauce as long as the price is affordable. Not to mention having a bunch of senior professors teach mutant kids. It's okay for them to teach a group of orangutans. Of course. All recruited professors. Charles is all screened, and none of them are hostile to mutants. Instead, they subscribe to the idea of peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants. Rao is so. Charles also uses the ability of telepathy to subtly influence them. The other side. The counseling room in Hell's Kitchen has been decorated. Charles asks Clarice to open a portal and come to his new office. He uses magic phantom transfiguration, and he can achieve the same effect. However, Charles did not want to expose too much ability. About the ability of metal control. He had already explained it to Storm Girl and the others. It is the second awakening. A small number of mutants will awaken a new ability after awakening one ability. Charles, why are we opening a counseling room in Hell's Kitchen? Clarice was lying on the windowsill. The little face is against the window and looks down. This is the third floor. A group of gangsters outside gathered in groups, not knowing what they were discussing. Hell's Kitchen is as chaotic as ever. It was no different from what she remembered. Clarice corrects you 2 questions. First, you can call me Mr. Charles outside, or Professor. Second, it's not us who open a counseling room in Hell's Kitchen, it's me who opens a counseling room in Hell's Kitchen. Charles sat behind his desk and took out a cup of scented cappuccino. Yes, Charles. Sensing a customer coming to the door, Charles pointed out to Clarice. Signaled that she could go back to school. He didn't want to be prosecuted by the Ministry of Labor for illegal child labor on the first day of his business. Clarice's delicate little face looked resentful. The mouth is slightly pursed. Appears sullen. Well, take you to Chinatown for hot pot on the weekend. Clarice's eyes lit up. And the barbecue, I heard that there is a lion dance at night in Chinatown, and I want to see the lion dance. Clarice has Oriental ancestry. But the mutant gene makes his hair and eyes purple-red. So. After being taken by Charles to Xavier Gifted Junior School. Every time Clarice sneaks out, she wraps herself tightly. She only dared to secretly watch. But he did not dare to enter the restaurant and order food like a normal person. Deal. Charles gave Clarice a high five. Wait until Clarice leaves. Someone pushed the door straight in. The attitude is not rude, but it is slightly rude. I saw that this was a girl in her early 20s. She was wearing a black leather jacket with a gray underneath, and she was carrying a bottle of whiskey in her hand. Jessica Jones placed the remaining half bottle of whiskey on the table. Grinning across from Charles. I'm just going to see who will open a counseling room in Hell's Kitchen. Jessica Jones said. Introduce yourself, Jessica Jones, a private investigator. Of course, in addition to the detective business, I can also make a cameo appearance as a bodyguard. My detective agency is upstairs from you. For the sake of the neighbors, I can give you a 70% discount. 6-fold off. Jessica handsomely pushed a business card in front of Charles. She believes she will soon receive a business order. These days, it's rare to see Stun Ching in Hell's Kitchen. Jessica has always trusted her instincts. Charles, at a glance, is the noble son of Midtown, or the lower city. Run to Hell's Kitchen to experience life. Then life will beat him all over his body. For example, those gangsters downstairs. It should be to discuss how to teach this psychologist who does not know the times. As for the delay in doing so. Very simple. This neighborhood is home to sportswear gangsters and hammerhead gangs. The hammerhead gang needs to make sure that this counseling room is not covered by a sportswear gangster. There is no need for a small counseling room. Causes conflict between the two gangs. Jessica knows the rules of survival in Hell's Kitchen. Episode 21, Charles smiled and put away Jessica's business card. I don't know if it's luck. Upstairs is Jessica's detective agency. Jessica Jones, a superpowered human. When Jessica was a child, the family was driving into a van full of radioactive materials when they collided. Jessica is exposed to radiation. She did not die because of this, but gained abilities that were different from ordinary people. It is mainly reflected in strength. In addition, Jessica has the ability to fly. Like a weakened version of the motherland. But unlike most superheroes, Jessica is very mournful and drunk every day, just like an ordinary person stuck in the quagmire of life. The reason for this character. It is not unrelated to her life circumstances. Jessica was controlled by the Purple Man for a while, driven by the Purple Man, and used her superhuman abilities to do a lot of illegal things. This caused her to develop severe PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. For your sake, a piece of advice to you: Hell's Kitchen is like not needing a lawyer, and you will never need a psychiatrist. Jessica picked up the bottle and prepared to leave. Charles said, since alcohol can't anesthetize you, why are you disguising yourself like an alcoholic? Let me guess, you can't get out of something in the past. The guilt that used to fill your heart. You don't feel like you deserve to enjoy life like a normal person. So you are sloppy, pretend to be an alcoholic, and stay in Hell's Kitchen, full of rotten people. It's like a leaf falling in a muddy pond, just rotting in this place. In addition, there is a lawyer in Hell's Kitchen, and I happen to know one. Charles finished in one breath. Jessica didn't respond, but walked to the door and trembled slightly. Then she raised her left hand and gave Charles a middle finger. Think about yourself, maybe let that lawyer fight the Hammer Gang on your behalf. Jessica, who returned to her office, wanted to continue taking a sip of wine. But the heart is boring. She was not even in the mood to drink. She sat hard in the wide swivel chair. Charles's words seemed to be able to see into the heart. Every word, was as accurately inserted as a sword into her psychological trauma. Jessica, after being irradiated with radioactive materials. Not only does she gain super strength and the ability to fly, but her body is also far beyond ordinary people. Alcohol doesn't work for her. She seems to be an alcoholic, but in fact she just pretends to be a rotten person. Because she closed her eyes, the images of what used to be came to mind, the desperate faces of those victims. Think of the lives she ended with her own hands. She hates superpowers. Hate yourself. I also hate the purple people. Damn psychiatrist, the Hammer Gang had better make him suffer a little. Jessica thought to herself. About half an hour later, the little brother of the Hammerhead Gang downstairs had already inquired clearly, and this newly opened psychological counseling room had nothing to do with the sportswear gangster. So 7 or 8 members of the Hammerhead Gang, armed with baseball bats and steel pipes, walked to the 3rd floor. This time it was aimed at teaching this bastard who didn't know the height of the sky. Then charge a high protection fee. The psychiatrist of Hell's Kitchen, does he think there is something wrong with our psyche? We don't even need internists in Hell's Kitchen because trauma mortality is much higher than cancer. The words of the little leader of the Hammerhead Gang made his subordinates laugh. This is Hell's Kitchen. Today may be a show of might, and his subordinates will be crowded. Tomorrow he will be shot and killed in the smelly gutter. Jessica heard the voice and sat at the corner from the 4th to the 3rd floor. The rule of survival in Hell's Kitchen is to hold your head honestly when the gangsters beat you up. That would only break the blood from the head. Without losing your life. Jessica felt that Charles, who looked like a noble son, would not understand this truth. So she will show up at a critical time. Save Charles. Of course, this kind of righteous action is not gratuitous. Her office has been out of business for 7 or 8 days, and she needs a sum of money to pay next month's rent. Bang. 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 Just as Jessica was thinking about how much main she was going to take. 3 gunshots broke her thoughts. Immediately afterwards, I saw the Hammerhead Gang holding the head of the mouse. Damn maniacs. They pushed the door and walked into the counseling room, not even having time to look at the layout of the room. They were greeted with a bullet. William was shot through the thigh. Jack was smashed in his palm. Josel's 3rd leg is afraid to be scrapped. They had never seen such a crazy doctor. The Hammerhead Gang just wants to get out of this terrible place. Jessica re-entered the counseling room. I saw Charles putting the gun away in a drawer. The corners of Jessica's mouth twitched slightly. You shot them? Obviously, I firmly believe that violence against violence is sometimes a necessary means. Charles replied. Jessica had a speechless expression. Did you know they belong to the Hammerhead gang? If you're lucky, you'll be sipped by the gunmen of the Hammerheads, and if you're unlucky, you'll be burned by them in Molotov cocktails, and even my office may be burned. So I'm going to hire you to talk to the Hammerhead gang. How about $100,000? Episode 22. Charles offered a price that Jessica couldn't refuse. $100,000. This business allows her to do nothing for a year. In the evening, Jessica took Charles out. The boss of the Hammerhead gang, Hammerhead, basically after 8 p.m., will be at the nightcap bar. After high pie until the wee hours of the morning, go to the hotel next door to continue high pie. A gangster boss whose work and rest routine is comparable to that of a high school student. She bought 2 hot dogs on the side of the road and handed Charles one. While eating, he said, "Listen to me, just stand behind me later." The hammer had a head injury, and the doctor replaced him with a metal skull, so he was not very bright. The implication is that traditional negotiations will not work. In fact, Jessica didn't want Charles to follow, because it could be dangerous. But who let Charles already settle the commission first? Then it doesn't matter. Even if the employer hangs up, she still gets the money. Charles nodded and said, "I have a friend who doesn't have a very bright brain, and we communicate well." He was talking about Steel Lux. Nightcap Bar is an 18 silence bar. But in Hell's Kitchen, there are no such prescribed restrictions. Because there are some people in Hell's Kitchen who don't even have identity information. Charles follows Jessica to the bar, which is beautifully lit and melodic music is very captivating. Hammerhead and a group of Backbone members hugged left and right, enjoying the double stimulation of beauty and wine. Jessica sat directly across from them. Charles also sat down logically and raised his eyebrows at the hammer-headed woman. The latter responded by giving him a charming smile. Handsome, he can eat wherever he is. Jessica. The hammerhead sounds the airway. He was no stranger to this woman. Imagine a young woman running a detective agency on his turf. The Hammerhead gang is of course ready to greet each other, friendly. However, the sportswear gangster took action first. And here it is. The sportswear gang lost 2 of the most courageous and fierce men. Since then, Hammerhead has mentally listed Jessica as a high-risk person. Everyone's well water does not violate the river water. Boss, he shot us. The little leader of the morning pointed at Charles and shouted. The Hammerhead's eyes suddenly became unkind. Jessica poured herself a glass of wine and drank it down. Hammerhead, this is my employer, so we should talk about how this thing never happened. Are you kidding me? Bloodshot eyes spread in the Hammerhead, and said angrily. He replaced it with a metal skull. This skull could have been hidden through skin grafts and wigs. But the Hammerhead didn't do that. So under the colorful lights of the bar, it makes him look very hideous. So many subordinates are watching today. If he gives in to a woman, how will he mess around in the future? That's no more to talk about. Jessica grabbed the bottle and smashed the head of the number 2 of the Hammerhead gang. Then the table was lifted, and the gangsters were all beaten on their backs. The hammer jerks forward with its head. The table snapped with a sound. But Jessica grabbed his head with one hand, leaving 5 fingerprints on the metal skull case. She kicked the Hammerhead in the calf. The Hammerhead screamed. Just as he was about to fall, Jessica grabbed him by the neck with her free right hand and lifted him up. Hammerhead, let your men put away the guns. Jessica said. Because she shot without warning and too quickly. Only then did the members of the Hammerhead gang draw their weapons. The people who reveled in the nightcap bar also began to run away screaming. The Hammerhead had an ugly expression and said to all humanity, put away the weapons. Jessica, we can talk. Jessica exhaled as if relieved. You're done saying that. Hammerhead. During the fight, Charles went to the bar to get a glass of wine. He came over and said, Jessica, I thought you didn't mean that when you said negotiation. Jessica tilted her head to look at Charles. Trust me, that's what it means in Hell's Kitchen. Didn't you get me a glass of whiskey? Alcohol doesn't work for you. Charles said with a glass of Gibson. This cocktail has a spicy taste and is popular in Hell's Kitchen. Jessica gave Charles the middle finger again. Because of the rotten whole time, Charles was rewarded with a bronze treasure chest. After opening it, I got the invisibility cloak. This is a treasure from Harry Potter and, like the Elder Wand, belongs to one of the 3 Deathly Hallows. After the negotiations, Charles invited Jessica to a late-night snack. The restaurant is a Chinese restaurant on this street. As a gentleman, Charles first handed the menu to Jessica. Jessica ordered a sesame chicken, a Mongolian beef, and 2 spicy hots. Charles added another tangerine skin chicken. I think this dish is quite interesting. When all the dishes were served, Charles began to be disappointed, because there was no feeling of Chinese cuisine, and he seemed to have no soul at all. The color of the spicy hot is very light, not spicy at all. This is related to the fact that eagle sauce people do not like to eat spicy. As for sesame chicken, it is also sweet, like fried chicken drizzled with a layer of sauce and sprinkled with sesame seeds. Tangerine skin chicken is even sweeter. The same fried chicken, this one drizzled with syrup. Charles was powerless to complain. Jessica saw that Charles had no appetite and said curiously, "Don't you like to eat Chinese food?" "I love Chinese food, and many people like Hell's Kitchen, so this shop has been open here for more than 10 years. You call this Chinese food?" Charles sympathized with Jessica. Episode 23, Chinese restaurant closed. Charles and Jessica follow the street lamp and return to their place of work. Jessica lives in the detective agency, because she couldn't afford to rent another place to sleep. Next. Charles's business was deserted, and Jessica's law firm was as empty as ever. So, it's almost noon. Charles went to the supermarket and bought a bunch of meat and vegetables, as well as a hot pot base. Thanks to the people in Hell's Kitchen who love Chinese food. That's why the supermarket bought the hot pot base, but it wasn't so spicy, only a tomato flavor. Back in the counseling room, Charles took out the dragon pot from the storage ring. Use the dragon pot as a soup pot. In The Little Chinese Boss, the dragon pot is one of the 8 legendary kitchenware. Its role is to heat up instantly and cook a delicious soup. For hot pot, that's perfect. After putting the base away, Charles sent a message to Jessica. After a while, Jessica came to the counseling room. Because yesterday Charles told her that he wanted her to eat a real Chinese meal, Jessica looked at the dragon pot on the coffee table with a skeptical mood. A very quaint kitchenware. It is carved with scales that resemble oriental dragons, as if they were something out of a museum. The inside of the dragon pot is boiling a rich soup. The fragrance is fragrant. "Charles, is this authentic oriental cuisine you said?" Jessica asked after sitting down. Today, Jessica changed her clothes and put on light makeup, which looks very refreshing. It shows that her state is a little better than before. Under Charles's subtle influence, Jessica began to embrace a new life. "Yes, I didn't buy a special dip, so I bought peanut butter instead." Charles put the beef in the dragon pot and pointed to the peanut butter on the side. Jessica added mushrooms and greens, as Charles said. When the greens were cooked, Jessica scooped up the leaves with a fork, dipped them in peanut butter, and put them in her mouth. When the aroma of greens, hot pot juice, and peanut butter spreads on the taste buds, Jessica's eyes lit up instantly. "Well, this is delicious." Although the hot pot is a bit hot, it does not hinder Jessica's dining speed. The food temperature exceeds 65 degrees Celsius, and the high temperature will burn the wound mucosa, which has a certain risk of causing cancer. But Jessica is a superpower. Charles didn't remind her of this little thing. As a result, I didn't eat enough. He bought enough ingredients for 4 or 5 people, but he still didn't have enough. It can only be said that Jessica is too edible. Looking at Jessica's slender figure, Charles wondered where her food had gone. Digested by that super stomach? "Charles, I don't eat so much every time, the point is that it's too delicious. If you don't do a psychological clinic, you can definitely make a fortune if you open a Chinese restaurant." Jessica wiped the corners of her mouth with a tissue and said. A heartfelt smile appeared on her face. People can never forget the past, unless the memory is erased. The only way to resolve the grief of the past. It is the driving force for hope for the future. For many days, Charles and Jessica had a very good time getting along. However, a pair of eyes are always on this building from time to time. Purple Zabudia Kilgrave. The man who once controlled Jessica. And Jessica was the first to break free from his control. It's incredible. The Purple Man's ability came from his parents' experiments. At a very young age, he was keen to control everything around him. He can control suffocating people to death, and he can make detectives swallow guns and commit suicide, and as a teenager, the Purple Man controlled hundreds of people to serve him. Until he learned that S.H.I.E.L.D. existed. By chance, he meets a superpower captured by S.H.I.E.L.D. Since then, the Purple Man has become low-key. He controls only a few people so that he can hide himself. Like when he controlled Jessica. Use Jessica's abilities to rob money trucks, instead of using your ability to rob banks. It seems that this is the reason for the failure of the ability. The Purple Man looked at Charles and Jessica, who returned from the supermarket, and the two of them carried a lot of ingredients. He didn't know who Charles was. But he had seen Charles under the law firm of Nelson Murdoch and took control of a group of gangsters. A man with abilities similar to his own. So, he was going to meet this person. 2:45 p.m. The Purple Man walked into Charles's counseling room, and he slowly looked at the layout of the room. Sunlight shines through the windows and spills on the soft sofa. The floor is covered with an expensive sheepwool carpet. The whole setting is very homely. It is easy for people to let down their guard and open their hearts in this environment. All in all, it is similar to most counseling rooms in Eagle Sauce, and it focuses on a relaxed atmosphere. It doesn't look like the purple man came for counseling. Instead, it is more like an opponent, looking at Charles through the environment. Make me a cup of coffee, 7 points of sugar. The purple man sat across from Charles and said. Episode 24, Charles looked up at him. Like most companies and studios in Eagle Sauce, he had a coffee machine, but he never used it. Moreover, Charles did not have the habit of helping people make coffee. There is a water dispenser next to it, you can pour yourself a glass of water. Charles said. The purple man's eyes showed stunned. Your own controls didn't work? Can the other party completely ignore his control? How is this possible? The purple man, who did not believe in evil, said, You jump out of the window. Charles looked at him like a fool. Until this moment, Charles suddenly reacted and knew who this person was. The famous purple man of the Marvel world, Zebediah Kilgrave. Charles always thought that the purple man's ability was psychic power, just like his, telepathy. The difference lies in. To use this power, the purple people need to use language as a medium. Only now did Charles know that the purple man's ability was not psychic power. Rather, it resembles the pheromones of the master of illusions. Release a pheromone through the language medium. The controlled person will do things against their will. This pheromone belongs to an external energy, and like potential energy, kinetic energy, and heat energy, it is absorbed by his energy absorption. Therefore, the purple man's ability had no effect on Charles. Is this really a chaotic Hell's Kitchen, and Charles is threatened with jumping? A voice came from outside the door. It was Eric the Magneto and Raven, the witch in human form, who came in. You shut up. The out-of-control purple man growled at Eric. Eric's face changed drastically. Because he found that he really couldn't speak. He wanted to speak, but his body went against his will. After all, it is the battle-hardened Magneto. In just a moment, Eric understood that his inability to speak had something to do with this purple-eyed guy. Swish. Eric's palm moved, and the paper cutters, scissors, pens, and other things in the room all surrounded the purple man. Especially the sharp paper cutter. It stopped right next to the purple man's lips. It seems that as long as the purple man dares to say a word, he will stir up that mouth. The purple man's expression changed wildly. He is also a ruthless character, but he didn't expect to provoke more terrifying guys one day. Who is this person? Who is this psychiatrist? Damn, who will tell him what monster he provoked? Charles tried it and used telepathy to get Eric to break free from the purple man's control. Because as long as the inner will is strong enough, it can resist the control of the purple people. For example, Jessica, who exploded emotionally, was once out of the control of the purple man. And Dr. Doom. In the original work, even at super close range, the purple man cannot control Dr. Doom. Charles, is he a mutant too? Eric looked at the purple man with palpitations. What if the purple man didn't shut him up, but let him end himself? He somewhat regretted not coming with a helmet. Out of trust in Charles, Eric came here today without a helmet. He went to Xavier Gifted Junior School in the morning. After learning that Charles was in Hell's Kitchen, he returned to downtown Manhattan. It's not. Charles shook his head. The pen controlled by Eric approached the purple man's throat almost immediately. Just a centimeter further forward can be poked into his throat. Charles, you have really changed, and before you changed to it, you would stop me from killing. Eric sat on the couch and laughed. I heard what you did, it was a mechanized battalion and you led the X-Men to completely destroy them and destroy Stryker. It looks like a lot has happened in the more than 2 years I've been in prison. Indeed, aliens invaded New York, and an Asgardian appeared on Earth. Charles nodded. Eric jumped off the subject. Charles, let's get down to business. I've said before that if we join forces, we can lead mutants to win wars against humans. The purple man broke out in a cold sweat. He remembered who was controlling the metal. Magneto. One of the most powerful mutants in this world. Such a powerful Magneto can talk about cooperation with this psychiatrist with a pleasant face. Obviously, the two are the same rank existence. At this moment, the purple man's bowels were blue. I already knew it was two big guys. Why did he run over and send him to death? Charles had no interest in Eric's proposal. Don't say he just wants to put it out. Even if it is not rotten, it is impossible to join forces with Eric. Just know how deep the Earth's water is. There is no need to think that mutants will defeat humans. Karmataj's Ancient One, that is an eternal friend, how strong is it? Charles does not know. Time Variation Authority. If the current timeline mutates, the Time Variation Authority intervenes. That organization is able to store the Infinity Stones to the trash. The Earth is also bred by the Celestial God Group. The breeding of the Celestial God Group requires the energy provided by billions of living beings. Even if mutants win over humans. Based on the number of mutants alone, the Tenjin Group also gave birth to a fart. In other words, if they go to war with humans, it is possible that the Celestial God Group will intervene. Other than that, Odin, the Lord of the Nine Realms, is estimated to be unable to sit still. Because of a world ruled by mutants. In the future will definitely threaten Asgard. Episode 25, Charles righteously rejected Magneto. Eric. You take your Onewood Bridge, I cross my Yongwon Road. In short, the X-Men will no longer be a stumbling block for him. This is Charles, the only one he can promise to Eric. Eric's face was not good looking. Because it was not what he expected. He thought that after Charles went to war with the Union, he changed from doves to hawks. In fact, Charles is just laying the groundwork for the rot. Of course. Mutants are a community of interests. Charles is planning the mutant elite route, if Eric is reckless with humans to the end, intensifying the contradictions between the two sides, then he will still fart. So, Charles showed Eric a clear way. Let him go to Black State to get a mutant country. Just like the original comics, mutants build nations, using rare medicines in their hands to trade with humans. Accumulate grain, build high walls, and slowly claim the throne. This 9-character mantra was said by Zhu Yuanzhong and is equally applicable in the world of American comics. The old bastard is so miserable, it is purely a loss of unculture. But if you read 2 more history books, you can't mix it up like this. Mutant country? Eric chewed the phrase in his mouth repeatedly. It was clear that he listened. Lead the Brotherhood of Mutants, as well as the subjugated Morlocks, to control a small country in the Black State, not yet with a handle. As for why Eric took a fancy to Wakanda, that's an afterword. Eric and Raven leave the counseling room. Left the trouble of the Purple Man. It's a hassle indeed. Charles took out a cappuccino and took a sip. He had 2 ways of dealing with the purple people. First, let Jessica blade him. The best way to overcome fear is to face it head-on. The Purple Man is Jessica's nightmare. If Jessica can kill the Purple Man with her own hands, it will be of great help to Jessica's psychological recovery. But in this way, the fact of those who are capable of themselves is exposed. The second. It is up to him to kill the Purple Man directly. Simple and simple, 100. You, don't kill me. I can work for you, I can do a lot for you. The Purple Man was panicked by Charles's murderous eyes. Charles took out his Elder Wand from the storage ring and pointed one end of the Elder Wand at the Purple Man. Avada. A green light hit the Purple Man directly, accompanied by a chaotic sound, as if the invisible god of death quickly passed by. The unforgivable curse in Harry Potter. It requires a strong killing intent in the heart to use it. Those who fall under the spell die instantly. Even the soul will be destroyed, and there will be no scars left on the body. When Charles unleashed this magic, he felt an extremely dark force that arose with the appearance of magic. He didn't particularly care, though. Because it is also necessary to dispose of the corpse of the Purple Man. I saw that he continued to use a phantom transfiguration charm to throw the Purple Man's body in the grass across the street. With all this done, Charles returned to the counseling room. At this time, the system's rotten reward was also issued. The host is successfully placed and rewarded with a gold treasure chest. This reward should be that he refused to do things with Eric. Eric Magneto. Whether it's going to war with humans or building a mutant nation, will have a profound impact on the world. So the system judged this rotten event and issued a reward for the golden treasure chest. Open the chest. Got, shining fruit. It's actually this devil fruit. Charles said with delight. Speaking of salary is justice, the General Yellow Ape, who leaves work on time from 9 to 5, is really a senior old-timer in the rotten world. If you get this, shining fruit, by yourself, is it considered a kind of inheritance? Anyway. Shining fruit just makes up for Charles's current lack of effective offensive means. Telepathy is mainly mental attack and control. If you want to destroy a building, what to do? Metal control is not Magneto's, magnetic control, after all, and there are no small defects. Energy absorption. The defensive effect is much greater than the offense. Although, energy absorption can convert absorbed energy into life, strength, speed and physical strength. But an increase in strength and speed. The values are not particularly impressive. Even if it is the real Black Emperor Shao. It belongs to the relatively ancient mutants on Earth. His melee combat ability is not very outstanding, at best, it is similar to the super soldier of the American team. Even if it is to the level of the American team. Charles estimated that he would need to absorb the energy of a wooden bomb. the magic of Voldemort template is a good means of attack. However, a wand needs to be used as a medium. In the world of American manga, this magical ability is only suitable for support. Sparkling Fruit is different. Can turn his body into light, has the speed of light and the power of light, and can also urge light to carry out long-range attacks. It was late that evening. Only then did someone find the purple man's body. To be precise, the person who called the police was not the first to find the body. There are several groups of people in front, and they have already pulled out the purple people. Not to mention watches, rings, and these things. It was the expensive suit that was pulled from the corpse. This is the fierce Hell's Kitchen. Jessica, who went out for dinner, happened to witness all this. Purple's a beauty a Kilgrave. In addition to the desperate look of the victim, she had nightmares at night, and the most she dreamed about was the purple man, a cruel, hideous, terrible, emotionless guy. The purple man just turned into ash, and she could recognize it. Jessica didn't expect anything. The purple man who accompanied her like a nightmare. He actually died in Hell's Kitchen, and his death was inconspicuous. Only underwear is worn all over the body. Death was very humiliating. The first thing she saw was Jessica, who was a purple man. She first stepped back in a panic and almost fell. She took a few deep breaths and adjusted her mind. Walked ahead of the crowd again. Look at the purple man who was put in a morgue bag by the detective. The fear in his eyes gradually disappeared. Episode 26. The death of the purple man made Jessica feel good for the next few days. If Charles is like a ray of light, shine into her life. The purple died, like a cloud covering his heart, most of it dissipated. A little regret is, the purple man was not killed by her own hands. But then again, the purple man's terrifying control made her palpitate. If you face the purple man again, can she still break free from the other party's control again? Whoever it is, thank him for killing the purple man. Jessica said to herself. The relationship between Charles and Jessica has also heated up rapidly in the past few days. To the stage where friends are above and lovers are not full. As for breaking the last layer of window paper, Charles wanted to prepare a romantic candlelit dinner. After all, atmosphere is the medicine that advances the relationship. But before Charles could prepare, a big incident occurred in Hell's Kitchen. Although Hell's Kitchen often has big things happening. But this time it's really thrilling. In Hell's Kitchen, an old neighborhood, in a low-rise building. There is an inconspicuous Gauche laundry company. In fact, Gau's laundry company is just a cover-up. There is a trapdoor behind the laundry company. At the secret door, 2 gunmen stood guard all year round. Passing through the trapdoor is the largest white flour factory in New York, which can produce more than 100 kilograms of white flour every day. This white-faced factory has been in operation in Hell's Kitchen for at least 10 years. Until last night, it was destroyed by a vigilante called Daredevil. The police rushed here when they heard the news. It was found that all the workers in the white-faced factory had their eyes gouged out. All are blind. There were more than 100 people, all of them with gouged out eyes alive. It's horrifying. Even if this happened in Hell's Kitchen, it caused an uproar throughout New York. Daily Horn, Imperial Morning News, Liberty Daily. I don't know how many media outlets, like sharks that smell blood, all poured into Hell's Kitchen. Even New York's police chief, George Stacy, was present in person. After seeing the miserable situation of the flour mill with my own eyes, George Stacy felt a lot of pressure. Next to him, the sheriff of Hell's Kitchen kept wiping his sweat. It's almost December. The weather in New York was sunny and cool, but he couldn't help but sweat. If he didn't handle it properly and caught behind the flour mill, his career would be over. So, after George Stacy left Hell's Kitchen, the sheriff launched everything he could think of. Gang leaders active in Hell's Kitchen, well-informed intelligence traffickers, zombie-like addicts, and of course, private detective Jessica. In the evening, Jessica mentioned the flour mill to Charles, and her expression was very low. Because the workers in the flour mill are really miserable. What the masterminds behind the scenes did was even more cruel and vicious than the purple people. Charles took her shoulder and comforted her gently. Right at this moment, Jessica turned her head, her eyes meeting Charles's blue eyes, towards the gem. Between the eyes of the two, it was like a rich chocolate sauce entanglement. Followed by Jessica's warm red lips came up. Depressed, Jessica desperately needs a passion to ignite her. Charles was stunned. What's the situation? I'm not ready yet. Ahem, real men don't need to prepare, he means candlelight dinner is not ready yet. Well, what else to think about at this time for a candlelit dinner? Charles put his hands where they belonged. Jessica thought she hadn't found it. Nothing happened overnight. The next day, Jessica asked Charles for a kiss, like a gentle little girl. Then she went out to investigate. Not just for the police department, a $600,000 reward. And the conscience of the heart. The superhuman physique is really strong. Charles said sincerely. How crazy was last night? 5, 6, 7? I can't remember anyway. If you change to someone else, you will definitely not be able to get up at this time. Jessica can also work with vitality. Fortunately, I ate shining fruit, otherwise I am afraid that I will not be able to withstand it. You can't be halfway through. Blow a dozen or 20 grenades to replenish. Charles stood up against the wall, ordered a takeaway for breakfast, and continued his daily routine. The daytime work is mainly to chase dramas, watch movies, and read comics. Sometimes it receives a few strange customers. For example, a gambler came to see a doctor, and instead of consulting Charles how to quit gambling, he asked Charles how to persuade his friends to gamble. In this way, you can win back the money you lost from your friends. It can only be said that there is nothing wrong with the logic. There was also a less serious dancer, with a suitcase full of clothes. She wanted Charles to use the professional eyes of a psychologist. Help yourself choose what to wear for work at night. Charles had reason to suspect that he had been harassed. The boy is too handsome, and he should pay attention to protect himself in Hell's Kitchen. Just as Charles was finishing a movie and was about to rest and relax, someone knocked on the door outside. Episode 27. Hello, do you have the phone number of the Kana Detective Agency upstairs? A sweet and beautiful voice sounded. Charles saw the blonde Gwen and stuck a small head in. Well? Gwen was stunned. This is the one who saved her at the Tower Resort. Afterwards, Gwen used her father's relationship to go to the Tower Resort to find Charles's opening information. It turned out to be nothing. What identification does Charles need for his hotel? Gwen thought she would never meet him again. Who would have thought that such a chance to meet again? She was just about to say hello to Charles, but stopped abruptly. Because she saw Charles twice. All as ghost spiders. Now she is wearing civilian clothes. If she is too familiar, wouldn't she be unpretentious, revealing her identity as a ghost spider? Gwen collected her emotions and said, well, my name is Gwen Stacy, and I have something that I need to entrust a private investigator. I just went upstairs, and the pseudonymous detective agency didn't open the door. And there is no contact information outside. Gwen came to Jessica to commission her to investigate the flour mill. Because of that tricky case at the flour mill. George Stacy had insomnia all night yesterday. Gwen felt it was time to share her father's worries. Then she thought of Jessica. Because Gwen knew Harlem's black vigilante, Luke Cage. Luke Cage once told Gwen. Hell's Kitchen has a superpowered human detective. It's just that Jessica is more mourned. Not fighting evil like Daredevil, Luke Cage, or Gwen. So, Gwen tries to persuade Jessica to investigate the case. The addition of a superpowered human can undoubtedly increase the efficiency of solving cases. You mean Jessica, of course I can give you contact information. By the way, my name is Charles Xavier, you can call me Dr. Charles. If you're not in a hurry, you can come in and sit and wait for her to come back. Charles invited Gwen. Really? Gwen's eyes lit up and filled with joy. Then I don't think I'm showing too much enthusiasm. Strangers after all. Will he make a bad impression on Charles by looking like this? The more you care, the more you inevitably think. It's okay, this is Hell's Kitchen, and there are always more people to see gunshot wounds than to consult about psychological problems. Charles got up and went to make coffee for Gwen. In fact, when Gwen was not paying attention, he refilled a cappuccino for Gwen with his mind. Gwen took the fragrant coffee with both hands, and sniffed with her delicate little nose. I was immediately overwhelmed by the aroma of coffee and milk. Dr. Charles, why are you opening a psychology clinic in Hell's Kitchen? Gwen thought for a moment and took the liberty to ask. She was really curious. As a New Yorker, does anyone not know what is going on in Hell's Kitchen? That's just 8 neighborhoods, and the vicious events that occur each year account for half of New York's annual total. The clearance rate is less than 30%. Some say that even when Jesus arrived in New York, he would be stripped and thrown away. If he is lucky, he may be able to save a waste. Because Hell's Kitchen is sick to the bone, this is the most in New York's urban area. Charles sat across from Gwen. Just like a daily psychiatrist chatting with a patient, he leaned back on the soft and spacious sofa to relax himself. Because only the psychiatrist relaxes. Patients can open their hearts and be willing to speak and share. Gwen heard what Charles said and was in awe. The meaning of this sentence is almost, the vicious criminals of Hell's Kitchen are also worth saving. Gwen said something similar on Twitter. But Charles is truly empowered by action. He was not only a great gentleman, but also a good man with a heart for the world. He has a heart as big as the sea. Gwen involuntarily made up his brain, looked at Charles, and automatically put a filter in his eyes. Such a man is so attractive. Think of her classmates at the State Imperial University, young, naive, stupid, and ungraceful. Goods are lost compared to goods, and people are more dead than people. Gwen compared others to Charles, and felt that even Iron Man Tony Stark did not have Charles's charm. Because Tony is sharp, arrogant, and conceited, not as peaceful and gentle as Charles. The most critical. Tony is not as handsome as Charles. Miss Gwen, you don't look like someone from Hell's Kitchen. Let me guess, you must be a student at an Ivy League school. For a moment, Gwen felt as if Charles knew who he was. Yes, I studied at the State Imperial University, Gwen said. Then we are still alumni, and my PhD in biology was obtained at Imperial State University. PhD in biology? Gwen was stunned and almost blurted out a question. Why do PhDs in biology open psychology clinics? Charles explains, my other PhD in psychology was at Princeton University in New Jersey. He holds 2 doctoral degrees at the same time. Gwen's adoration of Charles deepened. In fact, worship does not require reason, but the icing on the cake is, of course, the more the better. Episode 28. The identity of alumni has invisibly narrowed the distance between the two. Especially when Gwen found out that Charles's mentor was Kurt Connors. And Dr. Connors is also her mentor. The pleasant exchange continued until Jessica returned. Gwen waved his hand at Charles before going upstairs to commission Jessica to investigate the flour mill case. She is not prepared to reveal the identity of the ghost spider to Jessica. Because even Luke Cage doesn't know her true identity. In just 3 minutes of talking, Gwen saved $20,000. Jessica has promised the sheriff to find out who is behind the flour mill. Therefore, Gwen no longer needs to entrust her, nor does she need to know and reason. Late at night, Daredevil Matt appears in Hell's Kitchen, at the top of a church. Matt is blind in both eyes. But it has different hearing and perception. He is searching for those behind his escape from the flour mill. Mrs. Gao. That's what the gang members call her. Matt even fought Mrs. Gao. It felt like an old woman. But Mrs. Gao can use strong energy, just like the Chi in the Oriental martial arts story. With just one palm, Mrs. Gao sent him flying more than 10 meters away. Take advantage of this gap. Mrs. Gao fled without a trace. Matt, who was half squatting in the church, frowned slightly. I don't know why, he has been feeling like he is being spied on today. This feeling is not clear, like an instinctive intuition, like a sixth sense. So much so that Matt felt that he was putting too much pressure on himself. He desperately wanted to catch Mrs. Gao. Give an account to all the mutilated workers. What Matt didn't expect was that his every move was within Charles's perception. Mrs. Gao, one of the 5 fingers of the hand meeting. If I remember correctly, Hand and Ho are active on Manhattan Island because there is a keel buried in Manhattan Island. Charles thought to himself. The keel belongs to Kunlun's Shou Lao. As for Shileo, he was an immortal dragon in Kunlun. The ultimate trial of each generation of true Iron Fist is to defeat Shou Lao and obtain the brand of the dragon. And after Shou Lao dies, he will leave a keel. After a few years, the Shou Lao Association was resurrected and continued to be the object of the final trial of Iron Fist. For thousands of years. Shou Lao has died and been reborn dozens of times. The hand meets to dig the keel, and can use the keel to create a powerful existence called Black Sky. At the same time, the keel has the effect of extending life. Passed down to this day. There are not many keels left in the hand meeting, so their purpose is to excavate the keel on Manhattan Island. It's just that Manhattan Island is too prosperous. It belongs to the financial and economic center of Eagle Sauce. The hand rendezvous must proceed with caution. Accumulate power and plan for it. If Daredevil Matt or Jessica continues to bite Mrs. Gao, it will definitely provoke the hand. Forget it, if the hand will come to the door, let them feel what is called real horror. Charles withdraws the power of telepathy. It didn't direct Matt to find Mrs. Gao. Because Matt Do can't meet hands now. It is Kim Hee-do who is afraid of 3 points in the opponent's association. This kind of rot in the heart is not judged by the system as a rotten event, and naturally there is no reward. The flour mill case is now the 4th day since it happened. There is still no substantial progress in the case. In this case, the police department should have been under the most pressure. But J. Jonah Jameson, a reporter for the Daily Clarion, pointed the finger at all street vigilantes in the news. For example, Spider-Woman, Daredevil, and Divine Man, these vigilantes. His argument is that these vigilantes enjoy great praise from the public. They operate late at night, dressed in masked clothing. They are known as defenders of the New York order. However, it was already the 4th day. The vigilantes still failed to catch who was behind the flour mill. If the vigilantes can do it, it is no different from the detectives. So, does the city need these faceless masked heroes? Think about the devastation caused by these masked heroes. Do the people really need them? Think about it a little. It is known that the Clarion Daily has the suspicion of stealing the concept of changing and avoiding the important and the light. Jameson is the Black fan of Spider-Man in countless universes. In this universe, he directly incarnated as the Black fan leader of all the masked vigilantes. In reality, no matter how skimming Jameson's reasons are, under this public opinion, all street vigilantes in New York were sprayed with dog blood spray heads. Of course, there is also capital in this. It was the vigilantes who were scolded. It's better than being scolded by the police station. Jessica didn't care about these voices, she wasn't a street vigilante, and she wasn't wrapped up so much that she wouldn't recognize her friends. This time, he took the initiative to investigate the case of the flour mill. It's nothing more than that the mastermind behind the scenes is too much. It's that simple. Compared to Jessica, Luke Cage is slightly depressed. He was drinking alone at the bar. I found a girl with a hot figure to relieve my worries. His mood also quickly adjusted. After all, he had experienced worse things. And there is a set of methods for adjusting emotions. If it does not work, just come a few times, it will always work. Episode 29. As usual, Nelson Murdoch LLP was unswayed by outside voices. Fergie Nelson tells him about the discussion of the masked vigilantes. Matt just smiled slightly. Fergie, do you think the truth is in the hands of a few? Of course, we are lawyers, and we know very well who has the final say in this world. Fergie said without thinking. After speaking, he was stunned. Reflecting Matt's question is a paradox. Because when someone asks that, most people will answer that it is in the hands of a few. So, when the conclusion holds, is the truth that most people think is true? Matt expressed his opinion on recent public opinion in one sentence. The people are never a small group of people who hold the truth. Case. He thinks he's doing the right thing, so why bother with the voice in the unexpected world? This is a sophisticated and open-minded wisdom. But not everyone has it. Gwen was haunted by these sounds. Obviously, she has done so many things, arrested so many bad people, and saved many innocent people. But now it has become the target of verbal criticism. The crowd told them to take off their masks or get out. There was even a march in Times Square where many people held banners declaring that New York didn't need masked heroes. There are many people who give examples on Twitter. The battle between the masked hero and the villain causes himself to be injured and his property to be damaged. Gwen couldn't help but face the line on Twitter. If there were no vigilantes, it probably wouldn't have been injuries and property damage, and you don't have the opportunity to denounce them online right now. Gwen typed a paragraph. Someone quickly replied to her. I'm in Arizona, I don't have masked vigilantes here, and I don't have supervillains. I feel like masked vigilantes and supervillains, like a game of superpowers. Without any of them, the game ends, so, please get out of here with the masked vigilantes, and then there won't be any supervillains. Gwen's teeth tickled by his words. Without vigilantes, would those scoundrels in New York disappear? Joke. At dinner, Gwen asks her father, George, what she thinks about the masked vigilantes. I wanted to get my father's support. But George said, the masked vigilantes who run around the city all day, lynching in violation of the law, seem to me to be the disruptors of order. If anyone supports them, it's simply a step backwards for the rule of law in eagle sauce. Gwen huffed and put his fork on the plate. Don't eat anymore. The gas is full. Can't eat anymore. There was no one around to support her. No, there is still a person. Gwen thought of Charles, and she felt that Charles must understand herself. At this moment, Gwen had never been so desperate to see Charles. She changes into the ghost spider suit. Swing spider silk from Queens to Hell's Kitchen on Manhattan Island. Charles heard a noise in the glass. So I walked to the window, and saw Gwen hanging herself upside down with a spider silk to greet Charles. Hi, Mr. Psychiatrist. Gwen's voice carried joy that she hadn't even noticed. It's like a little girl in love. After seeing Charles, her mood plummeted. Hey, what a novel way to visit. Charles pretended to be startled and said. Then he opened the window and let Gwen the spider in. Gwen, who was wearing a battle suit, easily got in through the small window, and the flexibility of her body was really great. Mr. Psychiatrist, I've had a lot of trouble lately. My friend said you are an excellent, great, very distinctive psychiatrist. Gwen can't wait to use all the good words on Charles. Boy. Am I so good? I don't even know myself. Charles felt that everything else deserved it except for its characteristics. That's right. It's special, color. Your friend praised me too high, and I am a psychologist with some characteristics. Charles made a gesture of invitation to Gwen. By the way, isn't that friend of yours Gwen Stacy? When Charles was heard say his name, Gwen was taken aback. I thought I was recognized. She hurriedly said, yes, Gwen Stacy, she is the most beautiful of my friends, she told me. Wampa sells melons and boasts. Gwen, you're a bad boy. But one thing to say, the blonde Gwen has all the good qualities of a blonde. He has bright blonde hair, a tall and slender figure, fair skin like milk, and a standard melon face. In temperament, Gwen gives a feeling of confidence and independence. This is something that neither Jessica nor Sky has. Yes, I think you must be beautiful too. Charles said. Why? Spider-Gwen asked innocently. Because I believe in Gwen's eye for picking friends. Charles replied casually. This sentence warmed Gwen's heart. Charles really knew her well. Truly. Her eye for picking friends is superb, such as meeting Charles. Episode 30, Spider-Gwen sat on the couch and Charles sat across from her. But not right. Be about 30 degrees to the right-hand side. Because if you face to face, the corresponding communication will make people feel pressure invisibly. Charles liked this way of communicating. He thinks that Thanos came to Earth, and he can also ask him to talk. If he can't negotiate, use the negotiation method of Hell's Kitchen. Spider-Gwen's haunts are undoubtedly those who oppose the masked vigilantes. Dr. Charles, what do you think I should do? Is it really wrong that the masked vigilantes exist? Spider-Gwen said sadly. When what you are doing is not recognized, this feeling is as uncomfortable as suffocation. If you think one thing is wrong, what is right? Let the detectives of New York deal with the supervillains? They can't even manage the gangsters in this city. Do you think they can defeat the Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, or the Rhino Man? Charles said. During this time period, the Sand King, the Electric Light Man, and the Lizard Man have not yet appeared. It won't take long though. The Lizard Man should have appeared. Dr. Connors the Lizard Man, who was Charles's biological mentor. He lost an arm in the war, so with Osborn's funding, he researched potions that could be regenerated. This flawed potion turned Connors into a lizard man. Charles's words regained some confidence in Gwen. Truly. The Green Goblin is a complete maniac. The Rhino Man is a violent maniac who only knows destruction. Every time Dr. Octopus appears, it is also accompanied by bloody storms. New York detectives can't handle that. Of course, you need to make the public aware of the importance of vigilantes. If I were you, I would give myself a vacation, go out on a trip to relax, and not think about these bad things. It's just rotten. Swinging is healthier. The citizens of New York felt they didn't need masked heroes, they didn't need vigilantes. But New York doesn't know what's going on, it's a hellish map. Wait for the villain to come out and punch in the face. The people know how fragrant the vigilantes are. After talking until after 2 o'clock in the morning, Gwen decided to follow Charles's method and stop going on strike. By the way, Dr. Charles, please don't tell Gwen about me, okay? Or she'll know who I am. Before leaving, Gwen coquettishly said to Charles. You're too deep into the play. Charles complained in his heart, but his face was not half different, and he made an okay gesture to Spider-Gwen. Rest assured, as a psychiatrist, my work ethic does not allow me to divulge client information. So it's our secret. Spider-Gwen leaves from Hell's Kitchen. The cold night breeze blew on her, but a fire of joy in her heart made her very interested. Like Charles said, I don't do it myself. When the citizens of New York realize the importance of the ghost spider, she will be back by then. If it's Luke Cage the Divine Man ready to strike, then it must be silent. Spider-Gwen is a freshman girl. She felt she should tell the citizens of New York. Your good neighbor is gone. So Spider-Gwen bought a bottle of spray paint at a 24-hour convenience store, and she sprayed a line on the Clarion Daily building. Your good neighbor is gone. The drop is a small spider that spews out. Because the spray is more than 10 meters above the ground, this can be ruled out as a prank. The next day, the employees of the Daily Horn went to work and saw this line of white spray paint on the wall. Jameson got out of his Mercedes. He saw the line and rushed into the crowd to stop everyone from taking pictures and tweeting. He called the photographer and went straight to start a live broadcast. And claims that under his battle, the ghost spider has thrown in the towel. That's right. It's just throwing in the towel. Leave a word on the wall of the Daily Clarion of the Trumpet. Is this a statement of the vanquished? This is the masked vigilantes of New York, a group of cowards who only dare to run around in the middle of the night, like rats in the sewers. We defeated the ghost spider, a victory for all the citizens of New York. Jameson was outraged and shouted wildly in the camera. Because of the stage victory, the citizens of New York, instigated by Jameson, became even more fanatical. Meanwhile, under the prosperity and brightness of New York, the invisible sins in the darkness also began to move. There are no damned masked vigilantes present. They can then let go. For example, Adrian Toombs the Vulture. After the Za'atari invaded New York, Tums took out a loan to contract part of the post-war cleanup. But Iron Man Tony led the establishment of the Disaster Control Agency. With the Disaster Control Bureau in charge of the post-war cleanup, Toomes was kicked out, leaving him destitute. So, he and his friends used the stolen Chitauri technology to make Vulture suits and Scorpion suits. Without the hassle of Spider-Woman. They can rob a bank and solve the problem at hand first.